and welcome back to FluteTube. I am a lefty, in case you were ever wondering, and actually when it comes to playing the flute, I've always felt that the flute, if anything, is more of a left-handed instrument than a right-handed instrument. We tend to have more complicated fingerings when notes get fast, more things to deal with in our left hand than in our right hand. Also, two of Michel Dubos's three little devils are on your left hand first and fourth finger. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about with the three little devils, you can look at this video here. And the right hand thumb is the only finger we have that's sole purpose is to help stabilize and balance the flute. Your left hand thumb, by contrast, has a lot of work to do moving between the B flat and B natural levers. But there's one notable way that I would say your right hand has more work to do on the flute than your left hand, and that is your right hand four. Your pinky is the only finger that is responsible for 3 or perhaps 4 levers, depending on whether you have a C or a B foot joint. Our goal for today is to think really in depth about your right hand pinky technique, because even making small improvements in that pinky technique can make a big difference in how smoothly all of your fingers work on the flute. We're going to talk about pinky technique today, but also pinky strategy, because there are a lot of things that if you think through and you use your pinky strategically, you can make a lot of improvements. It becomes especially important to think through your pinky technique and strategy if you're having trouble moving in the very lowest notes of your flute register. Sometimes we can't move fast or efficiently enough if we haven't quite sorted out exactly what we want to do with our pinky and why. Now I'm going to go through a list of 7 things that you can think about with your right hand pinky to improve your pinky technique, improve how your flute responds down in that very lowest register. So be sure that you watch through the entire list, because even if just 1 or 2 ideas are new, they will be worth having in your arsenal of pinky tools. First of all, most importantly, I would say, be sure that your pinky is not habitually pressed down really hard on this D sharp or E flat lever. When we first start to play the flute, we're taught that this pinky is mostly to help us balance our flute, and we keep it down all the time. That's not a bad thing to do, but sometimes we press extra hard habitually because we're not moving that pinky very often. The harder you press, the less your pinky ever wants to move. That pinky can help with balance on your flute. Honestly, so can every other finger whenever you have it pressed down. It should not be overly used to help with balance. You should be able to move it freely at any point in time. It depends how you're balancing your entire flute. So watch this video if you need to think about how you're balancing your flute, if you need to stop relying so much on your right hand fourth finger to get your flute balanced. The next thing that I would do to help with your pinky's workload is to take it off of this D sharp lever as early as you can whenever you're about to need to move it. Although we think about keeping our pinky down on this lever all the time, there are actually very few notes that need it to be down. We need it to be down on our low and middle register E's. High E, no, it can come up to help with pitch. We need it down on high A, and of course E flats. You can actually hear that the E's and the high A suffer in tone quality and pitch if you don't have this right hand fourth pinky down. But other notes, it may help with balance, but we don't need it down. So if you need to move your pinky, get comfortable lifting it up early. With this pinky lifted, it can start to hover over these lowest note levers, and you can just press it down as soon as you're ready. You don't have to try to do this whole lift and twist and push motion. It can be much more efficient going down when you're ready for it to go down. In addition to letting your right hand fourth finger kind of hover over your low note levers, Sometimes you can go ahead and push them down early, depending on where you're coming from. That helps because then you don't need all of the keys to seal at the same time. These bottom keys are already sealed, and sometimes that will make such a huge difference in the quick response and articulation of those low notes. The only thing is you do have to be careful. If you have a low E coming up before you switch to the low notes, you want to keep your pinky on that D sharp lever so that the quality of the E doesn't suffer. If you can get these lowest keys on the C or B closed before you move your other fingers, that can be much more reliable because you don't have to get everything to seal all at once. Those are already taken care of. You move your other fingers to seal, but you're not trying to seal everything all at once. For the same reason, I like to move my pinky and get those low notes sealed whenever possible before I have to articulate, so that my fingers don't have to get the keys to seal at the same time that my tongue is sealing against the roof of my mouth. Just too many things have to seal all at the same time. Of course, sometimes you need to move this pinky at exactly the same time that you need that note to speak. If that's the case, I just make sure that I'm pressing them firmly and quickly. If you kind of press it too gently and not firmly enough, things don't all seal at the same time. So move with a quick, firm motion. It can become part of the speaking or the articulation of that note when you don't have the luxury of moving your fourth finger in advance of your other fingers. My fifth tip to think about today is to be sure that you minimize your pinky motion. Sometimes we get so worried about what our pinky's doing that we really whip it across. We whip it down over to those low levers, or we whip it back over to the D sharp lever. I tell my students when they have to think about their pinky moving between these levers to let it live in the crack here, right where it can hit everything very easily. It's not a 1 centimeter movement or something. You just kind of tip your pinky back and forth between the rollers and between your D sharp lever. Also, if you have to do something like go between a B and a C sharp, don't think of moving your entire finger. Think about just using this top joint to move your pinky. If I have to move between, say, a C sharp and a low B, I will purposefully, when I put my pinky down, use basically the top knuckle here to close the C sharp key, and then I will just tip my pinky to get to the low B. I'm not moving my pinky this way at all. Just tip or tilt your pinky, make that motion as small as possible. Whether you're going this horizontal direction or whether you're going this kind of more vertical direction. The next tip is kind of a funny one, but it is a time-honored tip that people use a lot. I did a short video on it last week. Basically, it's that you can use pinky grease. I suggest wiping your pinky along your hairline to get a little pinky grease. You can also go behind your ear, and you can also do side of your nose. I like to do this because I feel it's much more subtle for the audience. They don't know what you're doing, but I've seen really world-renowned players do this quite openly. If you're a flute player, you know exactly what they're doing. bonus strategy or thing to think about. Number 8. This one is, there are a few notes where if you lift up your pinky while you're playing the note, we hear a little bump. We can hear that it changes. Sometimes if I'm playing, say, a higher C or B or A, I take my pinky off while I'm playing, it doesn't matter. But if I'm playing, say, an F sharp, I won't lift up the pinky and move it over here during the course of the F sharp because you can hear a little bump in the sound. In a big hall, nobody will know, it won't make any difference, but I want to stay out of the habit of doing that at all, so that if I'm in a recording session and the mics are up close, that little habit of changing in the middle of a note where we can hear it won't come back to haunt me every single time that I listen to that recording. Given all this talk about pinkies, it's not surprising that if you have a low B and on your low C, we've got these rollers to help your pinky move around. In addition, there are some flute companies that, especially on their pricier handmade flutes, add rollers. A very popular one is to add a roller on this far edge of the D sharp lever to help your pinky move from the D sharp down to the low C sharp C B. On my Williams flute, I have an unusual little teeny roller on my C sharp key. When I got that Williams flute, I loved that little roller on the C sharp key. Now I play my Burkhart flute. I'm a Burkhart artist. I still have that beautiful Williams flute as a backup, but I love this Burkhart flute, and you'll see it doesn't have any extra rollers on it. But in fact, I've never once wished that it did, because the way that these keys are built, they're very small, they're very close together, they move very efficiently. But you should consider that when you're looking at flutes to purchase. If you have options of extra rollers, spend some time with it, see how it feels, and decide if that's really going to aid your pinky, or if there's some chance that feeling it there as an extra key might feel a little like a nuisance. That's kind of a minority opinion, but I know it's out there. Pinky technique. It's something that we often overlook. It reminds me of a video I did on flutter tonguing, where I mentioned that no teacher ever taught me all the fine details of fluttering in different registers. My tongue just had to kind of find it. Well, this is a case where your pinky has to find its way, and the more targeted, specific things that you have in your brain to help with your pinky, the better your pinky will do. And you will be very glad you put in that pinky practice time.